in the frozen north. This hardcore crew
This is where it gets bad.
battled deadly ice
Can't see so well. The ice really affects the brakes.
and mountains of snow
You're constantly fighting against snow buildup.
It's not a job for the weak of heart, that's for sure.
to keep a crucial supply route open. The Ontario Northland Railway.
Keep that freight moving. She's got to roll.
If the trains can't roll through this icy hell,
If the trains are moving, this is what we're paid to do.
Any day can bring any kind of problem.
the communities here may not survive.
The train is vital for them. There is no road.
This time, smashed tracks
I've jumped up over 1 full inch, which is not good. It's worst case scenario, derailment.
tricky maneuvers,
So there's a lot that could go wrong right now. That pipe could snap in half.
and dangers in the dark
I gotta get that open somehow.
threaten to derail hazardous cargo.
Lots of dangerous goods. We want to protect the locomotive and the crew. Look at that.
One of Canada's most extreme stretches of railroad, the Ontario Northland Railway, was built almost 120 years ago. It connects remote stations and far-flung communities.
Oh, the train is essential to bring in their food, building supplies, heating oil, gasoline.
It serves almost 100 towns and villages in the frozen north. From Moosonee, down through the freight hub of Cochrane, branches spider out across Ontario to towns such as Iroquois Falls, Hearst, and Timmins. The line extends as far south as North Bay.
It's vital to the whole north up there.
And they can't get in and out. They depend on it.
In one of the harshest environments on Earth, it takes a dedicated team
You want me to kill that breaker?
and mega machines to keep this railroad running. It's 7 a.m. and this freight crew is heading south on an epic mission. Conductor Dave Lidster is in charge of the cargo, and at the train controls is veteran railroad engineer Arnold Bailey.
I hired on, pushing 35 years here now. I enjoy coming to work every day.
Arnold has been committed to the railway from day one.
My son was 2 weeks old before I even seen him. I was away. I was in school, become an engineer at that time.
Even though Arnold missed the birth of his first child, he's a family man now, that's for sure.
Fortunate enough to have 6 grandkids, more the merrier. Get a hockey team going. Dave's just had a baby not long ago.
Yep.
Working on another one, I bet.
Not yet.
From the rail yard at Porkees, Arnold and Dave's train first heads west to Porcupine. Here they must load up 2 cars of ultra-pure sulfur dioxide, then haul it to the freight hub of Englehart. At Englehart, the team will switch out with a new crew and add more cars of lumber and paper. As it powers its way 220 kilometers down to North Bay, this train is the longest and heaviest freight train on the entire network. Dave and Arnold's first job: load the train with a consignment of sulfur dioxide, a specialist load that requires skillful handling by the team.
You can't have it next to the engine. You must have a non-dangerous car next to the engine, and then you can have the sulfur.
The train pulls into the sulfur dioxide plant. Now Dave's hazardous cargo handling training will be put to the test.
As a conductor, part of my responsibility is the proper marshalling of my dangerous goods. In case of any incident, you need to know the location of that car, specific car, the car number, the commodity in the car.
Sulfur dioxide production is a key industry in Porcupine. It keeps more than 20 local people employed. Each week, the railroad crew brings in cars of sulfur, and the facility here turns this raw material into liquid sulfur dioxide for use in mining, the paper and pulp industry, and water treatment.
The railway is pretty essential. Without it, we would need to ship everything by truck and receive everything by truck, which would increase our overall cost. We rely on the railway a lot, actually. The plant was built here exactly for this reason. The rail passes right there. Today is important because if we don't do the switch, we may run out of sulfur. So if it doesn't happen, it's bad for us.
Facility operating engineer Joey Zeminski gears up to switch out the cars of finished product for the cars of sulfur.
The cars are adapted with the proper safety devices to protect personnel as well as the environment. You can have up to 20 cars on site at any given time, so there's a lot of logistics and planning to go ahead with the switching. Sometimes we need a car that's in the middle of all the other cars, so there's a lot of pulling out and backing up.
Dave offloads the first cars of sulfur for Joey to inspect.
When the sulfur arrives on site, it comes in a solid state, so we have to heat it up with steam to make it molten.
The rail cars are specially adapted. A network of steam coils wrap around the insulated cylinders.
Steam flows through the coils to heat up that sulfur to a molten state. This is how we get the sulfur from the rail cars into our process. This is our sulfur loading arm. We connect the arm to the rail car and then use a pump to pump it. We have to keep everything warm to keep that sulfur in that liquid phase.
Once the molten sulfur has been processed in the facility, tons of liquefied ultra-pure sulfur dioxide are pumped into each empty rail car. Ready for conductor Dave to carefully connect up to the freight train, bound for Englehart.
That's a dangerous good. You wouldn't be able to have it next to the locomotives. You would need what they would call like a buffer car to essentially protect the locomotive and the crew in case of a breach.
With the hazardous cars carefully positioned in the train, Dave and Arnold can hit the road with their fresh consignment of sulfur dioxide. It's over 150 kilometers to Englehart, but an ultra-high-tech annual track inspection could put this journey into jeopardy. Once a year during a crucial 4-day window, engineers test every inch of the 1,100-kilometer rail network.
Over the next 4 days, we plan to test our whole system. So we have to run this test once a year. So we'll be pretty much living on the car for the next 4 days to ensure that we get the whole system tested.
To do this, engineers rely on this specialist train car. It uses lasers and cameras to forensically map each section of the tracks.
So this test car has lasers and other instruments to measure the profiles of the rail, make sure we don't have geometry defects, and that creates potential for derailment so that the car will find a defect. So if the defect is bad enough, we have to do an emergency repair before we put a train over it.
But today, Mother Nature isn't on their side. Heavy dumps of snow are wreaking havoc with the equipment.
We arranged to have a crew go out in front of us because there was a skiff of snow on the rail and we want to make sure we get that off of there so it's not confusing the lasers.
With the tracks cleared of snow, the geometry train can finally get to work, inching down the tracks.
What we're looking for is generally surface defects. So the operator looks at them, and if he sees a crack or missing hardware, he sends them to us. It actually gives us GPS coordinates that we give to our people in the field. We've got crews following us to make sure that they can take care of any of those defects. So we can't allow a train over it. It's like a report card to show us that we're doing the right things. You can rest easy at night knowing that things are safe.
It takes just minutes for the geometry train to spot a critical fault on the main line. It falls to track inspector Justin Della Rosebell to head out and check the severity of the damage.
I just got a call from my district manager about 2 possible defects from the geometry car. I have a possible canted rail and a possible gauge spot we're gonna go take a look at.
On board the freight train, Arnold and Dave know any gauge defect must be fixed fast. It could cause a derailment.
The geometry is very important, and it does the gauge out, so they can pick out a lot of bad spots, and with that, maintenance guys up, put a speed restriction on it until the guys can get out there.
To the south, Justin is dispatched to check out a potentially dangerous track problem picked up by the geometry train. It could mean closing down the main line. Justin has been working on the railroad for over 10 years and loves the job most of the time.
I love it being out here with Mother Nature. Just, you can't beat that, the fresh air. The downside of things, it's a very big responsibility. Having to, be responsible for the tracks and train and people's lives in my hands is very stressful sometimes.
Today looks like it's going to be one of the most stressful days for Justin.
The geometry car has found some surface gauge spots. If these defects aren't fixed, it could cause a derailment.
The geometry train sends Justin the GPS coordinates of the defect. Now at the site, he needs to assess the scale of the problem, and it's not looking good.
So as you can see, we've got some pretty defective ties. They're cutting into the plate, and it looks like not much is holding it. So I think this might be our spot. I'm gonna go grab my level board and gauge, and we'll have a look.
The gauge is the distance between the rails. It must be 143.5 centimeters to keep the train's wheels on the track.
We're gonna take a couple measurements. So gauge is measured from inside the rail to inside the rail, and always under the lip and overflow. So as I suspected, this is definitely our spot. We have what's called a rapid change of gauge. So within a 3 or 4 tie space, I've jumped up over 1 full inch, which is not good. A wheel from the engine or any car could fall in if the gauge is too wide. So I think our best bet here is gonna be to change a couple ties in this area and eliminate the problem.
But rail tie replacements are not a quick fix, and Justin has no choice but to close down this section of the line. He needs track engineers on site fast.
ON Track Inspector Justin Della Rosebell, this is ON Foreman Brad White, over.
I found the gauge spot from the geometry car. We're gonna need to get them changed up here before the train.
Okay, sounds good, ON crew ready, and we'll head towards you.
The freight train crew is ordered to slow right down. This should give the track crew a chance to fix the gauge defect ahead. Arnold's experience means he knows how grave a rapid change in gauge could be for his train.
Our wheels are only so wide, and they got to fit on the rails, and if the gauge gets too wide, we're going to fall in between it.
I'll have Steve Dawson use the claw bar, pull the spikes.
Further south, The track engineers arrive to fix the gauge defect. But the clock is ticking.
We have about an hour to do the job.
Heading up this crew is foreman Brad White.
Go to get the jacks and get the rail up enough to get the plates out.
Brad needs this operation to run like clockwork so they can clear the line and get the freight train through.
We'll pull the inside spikes and the outside spikes on each tie.
First job, free the rotten old timber rail ties so they can be removed and replaced.
The spikes are being removed so that we can jack the rail and remove the plate.
To complete the fix in record time, Brad calls in some mechanized muscle.
Okay, our backhoe's arriving.
But before the machine can tug out the ties, the team has to raise the rail.
He's just moving some ballast, making a hole for the track jack.
Digging out the ballast eats up precious minutes. But finally, the first jack is installed under the rail.
He's gonna give it 2 notches on the jack, 2 or 3 notches, enough that we lift the rail enough.
Each jack can lift up to 15 tons.
Now he'll take the bar, move a bit more rock.
Finally, the plates are removed. Now the mighty machine can make its mark.
We will be hooking on momentarily with the clamp to pull the tie out of the track.
The team is running out of time. They have just 30 minutes left to make the fix. Brad needs a plan, and fast. The freight train has slowed, but it cannot be delayed much longer. Engineer Arnold does not take the track engineering crews for granted.
These guys are out on the track, fixing the track. They're outside swinging hammers, working in all the weather conditions. They have it pretty tough. I wouldn't want their job. Yeah, they keep us moving along pretty good, unless there's an emergency beyond their control.
Foreman Brad is trying to take control of this emergency. The team is racing against the clock, but Brad has come up with a plan to speed up the fix.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull both ties at the same time here and put the 2 back in at the same time also.
The hydraulic backhoe claw attachment makes quick work of hauling out the ties.
Mike, we're ready for you to put the ties back in, please. Thank you.
And luckily for Brad, the new ties slip under the track like greased lightning. Now it's a race to the finish line. Backfill the ballast and spike the track to the ties.
We're ready to start spiking ties, and Dave is spiking the new ties.
Brad and his crew have done it. With the last spike driven, they can clear the line just in time for Justin to reopen the track.
It's Track Inspector Justin Della Rosebell. I just want to show the main line back in service.
It's okay to show the main track back in service.
That is correct. Thank you very much. The guys did great. Worst case scenario would have caused a derailment, so it's definitely best to get in there and keep things rolling.
It's a clear run into the freight hub of Englehart. Conductor Dave and engineer Arnold have completed their mission. Englehart is a true railroading town. It was established in 1908 by the building of the Temiskaming and Northern Ontario Railway, and is named after the railroad chairman, Jacob Lewis Englehart. In the early 20th century, prospectors and miners flocked to the town after reports of spectacular gold and silver strikes close by. Englehart became the jumping-off point for prospectors who arrived to stake their claim. During Ontario's gold rush, the mines surrounding Englehart are rumoured to have produced almost 10 times as much gold as the Klondike fields, making the region a global mining center. Today, the town is home to around 1,500 people, and the main industry is plywood and paper. The railroad is crucial to transporting these products across Canada and North America. Dave and Arnold's cars of liquid sulfur dioxide, lumber and paper can now be hooked to the network's ultimate train. This genuine monster will depart Englehart, bound for North Bay. It will be the biggest and heaviest beast on the railroad.
It's a beautiful train. Big, heavy. We're talking 10, 12,000 tons easy. 9,000 feet in length. Beautiful train to haul.
Today, it's even bigger than that. But it's not Arnold hauling this 14,000-ton, 2-kilometer-long behemoth.
Roll by is good. Have a safe trip and a great day, guys.
Roll by is good. You have a good day too, Craig. Thanks.
The task of guiding all 124 rail cars 5 hours south to North Bay
Pretty big too, right?
falls to engineer Phil Selman and newbie conductor Robbie McPherson.
I'm just gonna wave at my kids here.
Oh, they're waiting for you.
Been with the railroad for 4.5 years. I've only been a conductor for about 3 months. And I think Phil's been here for 31 years. 31 years.
I used to swing a hammer and get all sweaty, and this is a lot better. I used to do the other part of the job, of the track, so I'd rather sit in a chair than change rails.
The southern section of the Ontario Northland Railway is the most challenging part of track to navigate. This stretch of curves and steep gradients will push the very limits of a train this size.
It's pretty twisty and hilly. It's quite the roller coaster ride.
Sometimes you'll get something pull the train apart because part of the train's still coming over the hill and the other part's still on the other side of the hill. Doesn't really concern me because if I pull it apart, the conductor fixes it.
But there's one thing that might concern Phil, and it's no joke. Towards the southern end of the Ontario Northland Railway, thousands of tons of snow and ice that has accumulated along the tracks through the long, deep winter has melted, creating streams and filling ditches. As the melt waters swell and their flow increases, they begin to cause the track crews a serious problem that could stop the freight reaching North Bay. The railroad has scrambled an engineering crew to make an emergency track fix.
RTC Englehart, this is Owen Foreman Kitmore. I'd like to pull the mainline track out of service.
An 18-meter pipe called a culvert that channels meltwater away from the rails has come apart beneath the track. If engineers don't urgently replace it, this section of the line could be washed away.
Morning, everybody. We're going to be putting in pipe today. We have one train today. He's ordered at 1300 out of Englehart, so this has to be done by then.
8 years on the railroad has hopefully given track foreman Kip Moore the experience he needs to replace the culvert before the freight train closes in.
This culvert project is crucial. A lot of old culverts on the system. This company's over 120 years old, so there's definitely a chance of derailment, a washout. A number of things could happen.
Massive volumes of water and snow can wash out ballast from beneath the track, leaving it dangerously unsupported. To protect the track, workers install a network of drainage pipes known as culverts, to safely channel the water under the track. Some of these culverts are over 100 years old and have become damaged and blocked with debris. Without proper drainage, the track becomes undermined and trains could derail. To repair these pipes, the teams must remove sections of rail track, dig out the old pipes, replace them, and then rebuild the section of track.
This needs to be done within the next hour and a half because we have a train coming out of Englehart. It has to go through. So today, our main focus is to get that pipe in, get the track back in service.
Their only hope of getting the job done in time is this 34-ton high rail excavator. First job for this hydraulic Hercules and its driver Jacob: pull out the rail ties beneath the track.
Without this excavator, we'd need more manpower because this is a big job, a very big job.
To make matters worse, this big job needs an extremely delicate touch. A network of multi-million-dollar fiber optic cable runs alongside the track.
That cannot be touched. It has to be hand dug. And if we do destroy it, internet's down, bank machines are down, computers are down from here to Toronto. This is one of the more difficult ones.
Not only must Jacob and his excavator meticulously avoid the buried cable, he must also dig between the rails with surgical precision.
This is the tricky part where his bucket just barely fits between the track. If he hits that rail, he could buckle our track, which is not a good thing. So there's a lot that could go wrong right now.
The track section ahead of the 14,000-ton train is now closed until the crew has replaced the culvert.
If we can't pass it, then they got to fix it before we can go. So the faster they can work, the faster we can move.
If everything was perfect, it would probably be about a 4-hour run. But because we have these slow orders and things, then it just adds time.
Engineer Phil needs to get the train through to North Bay, but they can't risk a derailment.
Like, they make the track safe, so if they don't do their job, we don't really have a job.
Less than an hour down the main line, the operation to replace the culvert has reached a critical phase. The pressure is on digger driver Jacob. Hit either of the rails, and he risks buckling the track, closing the main line for hours. But after minutes of anxious excavation, Jacob gets a grip and uncovers the culvert.
Well, as you can see, the excavator just pulled half the pipe out. Doesn't look very good. Good thing we're replacing it now. Almost looked like that collar come apart, eh?
It's like performing keyhole surgery with a hand axe. All of Jacob's 12 years of experience behind the digger controls is needed right now.
We got to get the pipe put in and get that track back in service before that train comes. If we delay this train, all sorts of businesses don't get their product on time. It's not good for the company. We try our best to keep that train on time and on track. What do you think? Ready for the pipe? We better get going on it soon because the train's coming.
But the problems aren't over yet.
Okay, is you ready for this pipe?
Just as they raise the 18-meter long, 60-centimeter diameter pipe, the icy winds pick up speed.
It's going to be hard to control this pipe. It could be very dangerous. That pipe could snap in half at any moment. Super windy.
This is not good news for Phil and Robbie. Their vast train is now closing in. The network's heaviest and longest train is making good progress towards the site of their track fix.
Like, if they can't get their job done, then we basically have to sit and wait until they do.
Those guys, we need them out here to keep us safe and keep the freight trains moving. That way we feel a lot safer when they're out here doing their job.
Ahead, Foreman Kip is under pressure to position his pipe.
Got to get it turned around to get it underneath the track.
But the wind is turning this operation into a perilous arm wrestle.
Carl, throw me that glove up.
They must control the swaying culvert, rotate it 90 degrees, then thread it under the track.
It's quite windy, but now we got it in. We're starting to backfill until we get to where we can put our ties in. Gonna run the packer over all of it, eh?
Then they must carefully pack 100 tons of soil back on top of the new pipe.
Hopefully our machine doesn't quit on us. Not until the track's back together. It's not smooth sailing until everything's said and done.
The excavator makes quick work of the backfilling, now to reinstall the ties. After spiking down the rails,
need to smash with the hammer. Yeah, keep it like that.
Kip's team has done it.
Owen RTC Englehart, it's Foreman Kip Moore. I like to put mainline track back in service. All repairs are done.
They clear the line just in time for the network's biggest and heaviest freight train to pass over the top of the brand new culvert. Now the vast 2-kilometer-long train pushes south into the hilliest section of the entire network.
When you have to pull heavy loads up and down grades, the engine has to work more. You might have some wheel slip, spinning, things like that.
Hauling this much heft gives the rail crew a problem. The wheels of this train take an extraordinary pounding.
If you do have a wheel that's out of shape, either shelled or broken, or a sharp edge, it can cause a derailment.
To overcome this challenge, the Ontario Northland Railway has an entire team dedicated to keeping the wheels of all their trains and carriages turning perfectly.
So there's going to be wear and tear on these wheels. This then creates those defects in the wheels.
In North Bay, wheel shop supervisor Ryan Deschamps and operations manager Troy Hurrell repair over 400 wheel sets every year.
We have an O&R rail car that's getting unloaded with some defected wheels that came down from up north. These wheels then get put into our wheel shop and go under inspection. And depending on which defects these wheels have, we then begin that process to refurbish them.
Heavy cargo puts the solid steel train wheels under intense pressure. The wheels develop flat spots, fractures, and they deform. It's critical the team fix these defects.
So if this didn't happen, the defects would keep happening, and potentially the locomotive could derail.
The shape of a wheel is vital to keep the whole train running on the track. Train wheels are not like the wheels on your car. The outside of a train wheel is narrower than the inside. This way, when the train goes round a curve, the wheels move to the outside of the track for a smooth turn. The lips on the inside of the wheels, called flangers, stop the outer wheel from slipping off the track. But if they don't have the right shape, or the flange is not deep enough, there's nothing to stop the wheels from jumping the track, causing the train to derail.
There's a minimum thickness for each wheel. If we don't meet these specs, there's potential of derailments. The wheels can't hold the load that they're required to hold.
To keep the wheels in shape and the trains on the track, wheel shop workers use a unique machine, the Wheel-O-Matic.
What this machine does is it reprofiles the wheels.
The machine slices off just enough material to get rid of the defects and bring the wheel back to the correct shape. If the wheels can't be saved, all is not lost. The team can recycle the axles by fitting them with new wheels, known as blanks.
This machine here is our 400-ton press. This is the process to build new wheels. What we're doing is installing new blanks on the reconditioned axles. Currently, you'll see Claude over here right now getting ready to lift an axle out of the axle lathe. Each one of these wheel sets weigh between 4,800 and 5,800 pounds. We got to use a special sling with a protector on it so we don't hurt them.
This heavy hauling hardware is now ready to be reinstalled beneath a locomotive. All set to take the weight of freight for thousands of kilometers. But it's not just the wheels that are pushed to their limits by the network's biggest freight train. Moving this much freight means the rails also take a hammering, quite literally.
With the wheels, right? It can rip the track apart. It can wear it wrong. There's lots of damage that can be done. If it's rocking and rolling all over the place, dropping one side compared to the other, it's going to cause an unbalance, and the weight load is going to be shifted, and it can push on the track and make it cause a derailment.
Up ahead, the railroad has called out District Manager Chad Martin to check a badly damaged section of track. And it's not good news.
So a lot of these pitted areas, if left, will cause rail defects. You could have unstable loads.
Wheel spin, the extreme freezing temperatures, and the uneven skidding of wheels around the tight curves here causes a devastating rail condition called corrugation.
Over time, that causes this corrugation effect, which makes small defects in the top of your rail, and if left, can cause internal rail defects. Rail breaks eventually. It can cause a defect called piping, where because of the hammering in the top of the rail, the inside of the rail will actually split open and cause like a pipe defect.
Before the 124-car train can pass through, Chad needs to call in the big guns. A 1,200 horsepower grinding train to smooth out the corrugation.
It has many grinding discs, which will take off all this flaking and pitting in the rail and bring it back to somewhat of a new rail head.
Machine operator Jamal can adjust the angle of the 24 high-speed grinding discs to shape the perfect railhead.
So pretty much I control the grind and everything up here from the computer. It takes a lot of concentration. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure. Well, this thing with it grinding, it kind of throws out sparks, so we'll be keeping an eye for possible fires, but we call them smokers, so no one panics and whatnot, but we got about 5,000 gallons worth of water to ensure we're not burning anything down.
Jamal and the grinding train must make 3 passes over the defective track. They must work fast. The freight train is closing in.
When you got a big train, you just gotta know your hills.
As Phil and Robbie's train enters the most twisted and hilly section on the entire network, Phil is worried about the joints, or knuckles, holding the train together.
We're all up and down hill, and like I say, some of the knuckles aren't the best, so if there's any weak ones, we'll find them, unfortunately.
These hills and immense tonnage put the knuckles under extraordinary stress.
Well, right now we've been climbing a hill for about 3 miles. Now another mile or so we'll climb a hill again.
Just down the line, Jamal and the grinding train race to complete the final passes on the worn-out track.
As you can see, almost all the defects are completely gone. This is one nice smooth ride through here now where the wheel of the train will make complete contact to the head of the rail.
Thanks to the grinding train, the track is in perfect condition once again, and the mother of all freight trains can pass through without a squeak. 5 hours, and one track problem after another has pushed the freight team behind schedule. But their problems are not over yet. Just a few kilometers from home, Phil's worst fears may have come true.
Yeah, it's starting to get a little dippy.
Look at that.
Phil brings the 2-kilometer monster to a grinding halt. And this time, it's not the track. The entire back half of the train is missing. For newbie conductor Robbie, this will be a baptism by fire.
So what happened is this piece of the knuckle actually broke right off on this pin.
The enormous weight of the freight has put so much strain on the joints between the cars. One of the knuckles has sheared right off. Engineer Phil reverses the front half back up the track, hoping Robbie can find the rear of the train.
I came back and the train had came apart. Now we're on our way back to fix the car. We'll stop with enough room for me to safely fix this knuckle, and then I'll make the joint and put the train back together, and we'll be on our way again.
They found the missing cars, but with the light fading fast and temperatures plummeting, this will be no easy fix, especially as Robbie has only ever changed a knuckle once in training.
I gotta get that open somehow. Could do some real MacGyvering now.
Although Robbie has fitted the new knuckle, he can't persuade it to open or close.
All right, so this knuckle is jammed in here.
Train knuckles should automatically lock onto each other when they collide. But whatever Robbie tries, his new knuckle will not close, and the train will not lock together. He needs to find a way to free up the new knuckle, so it will clasp onto the other knuckle and connect the train once more. With a little help from his friend, Tommy Bar, Robbie eventually frees the jammed knuckle and reconnects the train.
Stop there. Okay, so right now I'm cutting the train back in. Everything should be good to go. That's my second knuckle ever. First one was on my training. What can you do about it? You just gotta fix it and keep on going.
Thanks to Robbie's heroic effort to save the train, Engineer Phil can carefully ease the 124 cars of freight into North Bay. Better late than never.
We had one hiccup or whatever, but other than that, I think we did pretty good. We made it down here. The track maintenance team there, they did a good job on our line today, and we all got here safe. Whenever the phone call rings next, I'll be on whatever train there they need me.
It's taken the hardest working railroad engineering team in the business.
I just want to show the main line back in service.
Okay to show the main track back in service.
A laser-sighted high-tech geometry train.
So the car will find a defect. We have to do emergency repair before we put a train over it.
And a heavy hauling cargo cruise.
We're all one big team, and if we work together, we get the trains over.
To keep the freight rolling on one of the world's most extreme railroads.